Myself. Okay. So once again, welcome. My name is Chris Forts. I'm the Assistant Bureau Chief in Transportation Safety with KDOT. We really do appreciate the opportunity to come and present to this group today. I also have a couple other folks. One of my boss's boss, Chris Herrick, is over here, the Director of Planning and Development, and Elizabeth Ortega. She's also in our Policy Affairs group. So they're here to make sure I don't do anything bad, okay? So all comments will be directed at them. So, but once again, hopefully we can get some really good information here. We also have another, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the data side of it, but then one of the things that Jay really wanted to talk about, we also have some slides in here talking about roundabouts and diverging diamonds and some road strips, okay? I'm okay on that stuff, but once again, I might lean on Chris Herrick if we have questions surrounding some of those things for some of those unique intersections that you might come across in the state of Kansas. So without further ado, I start off all my presentations with this. So this is fatal crashes in the state of Kansas for those 3 years, okay? Now you're going to go, well, 2019, that's kind of old. It really doesn't matter which 3 years you look at. And the takeaway here is the randomness of these fatal crashes. So you think you see clusters around Wichita, Topeka, Kansas City, but when you start looking at this, you see the randomness of it. The other side of this too goes to show you it can happen anywhere, okay? And so when you look at the next level of severities, suspected serious injuries, you're talking about life-changing injuries. Okay, this isn't, you went and got 6 stitches and life's all good. Okay, this, traumatic brain injury, maybe paralysis, wheelchair, different things like that. Multiply this times about 3 or 4, depending upon the year. Same scatterback is going to be up there, talking about the randomness of it. But once again, it can happen anywhere. So we're here in the Silverhead Legislative Group. We want to look at fatalities, and we try to combine different age groups. So when you look at the 56 to 70, okay, this does not talk about causation. This just talks about who died in the crash. Okay, it could have been a driver, could have been a passenger. Once again, nothing about causation. The startling thing to me is in 2013, the number was 52. Here we're sitting in 2020. The last year we have official data. It's almost 90. Okay, probably not surprised. We know that our population is aging. We've got more folks on the road for longer periods of time. But it's a pretty significant increase just in these last 6 to 7 years. And it's probably going to continue to go there just because of the population that's playing out. This is another slide that I like to really highlight. It talks a little bit about that everywhere. I really can't go a presentation without talking about the importance of seatbelts. I think the amazing thing to this is the more rural you get, the less likely you are to wear your seatbelt. And we have data to go back on that for a long time. So think of the urban centers, Wichita, Topeka, Kansas City, things like that. You can certainly see its higher belt use rate. And so the suspected serious injuries is the darker orange. But then when you get out into the rural areas, those numbers go down. I think there's lots of reasons for it, but the important thing is remind everybody every time to wear your seatbelt. Who drives a pickup? All right. I will not ask you who's belted, but I will ask. You know somebody drives pickup is not belted. Okay? And we have data to support this for going back a long time as well. We certainly know when you look at passenger vehicles, you look at automobiles, pickup trucks, SUVs, and minivans. Pickups by far buckle up the least. Now the other interesting side of this, this is actually part of a survey. So this is Kansas data, okay? This is part of a survey that we do every year in June. And we have people that actually stand on the side of the roads. Okay, we have, I think we have about 250 observations kind of scattered out through 16 or 17 counties across the state. So they'll take a look into the vehicle. They'll know what type of vehicle it is. They'll make an educated guess on the gender of the driver. And they'll also make an educated guess on the age of the driver. And age, we break it down in 3 areas. We have young drivers, middle-aged drivers, and older drivers. Once again, I want to highlight, nobody is knocking on your window and asking, how old are you, so I put you in the right category. Okay, it's just a general observation. So if you break it down by all of those different categories, what type of vehicle, male or female, and age of the driver. almost every one of those pickup trucks is the lowest. Doesn't matter who's driving. When they get behind the wheel of a pickup truck, they're less likely to be belted. It's a pretty amazing stat when I think, because most of the things that we do are centered on the young male. Okay, we know that they bring lots of challenges to life, not only in traffic safety, but in lots of other arenas too. So a lot of the things that we do will target that group. But when you look at belt use, it doesn't matter who's behind the wheel; they're less likely to be belted. So I want you to take that back to the folks that you know are not belted, okay, and really highlight the importance of that. This is another interesting stat. Once again, I talk about seat belts a lot. This stat always just blows me away. If the driver's belted, 98% of everybody else in the vehicle is belted. The stat goes back years. Okay. If the driver's not belted, it's about 33%. So once again, not only does the driver dictate the mood of the car, when the driver's belted, everybody else is belted, but they're also in charge of getting to your destination. They're in charge of everything. They set the mood of that vehicle. So when you're in the vehicle with others, make sure you're belted and make sure everybody else is belted as well. A lot of people like to talk about distracted driving. Okay, these are distracted driving crashes. So once again, these are law enforcement submitting their crash reports to KDOT, and then we're able to kind of break it down by some certain areas. I actually chose this age group, so we got 61 to 65, 60 to 70, and then 71 to 75. So if you look at that, you can see that in 2009, if you look at the 61 to 65, so the very top one, 1,100 distracted driving crashes up to 1,700, almost 1,700. Next age group goes from 700 to 1,300. Next age group goes from 545 to 888. We're certainly all more connected in life. Okay, there's no doubt about that. The other thing I would highlight from the fact of distraction is much more than just a cell phone. Okay, I referenced that survey that we do earlier. We actually also track that by distraction. And basically, this is on your phone. Okay, this is texting. Looking out this way is another distraction. Okay, taking that Route 44 and it's right in front of your face as you're trying to drive down the road. That's a distraction. So which leads to, there we go. I'm sorry, I got this in another order. About 1 in 10 drivers are distracted behind the wheel. So once again, on their phone, texting, or other distractions. When you look at young kids, actually the second biggest problem with young kids is number of passengers in the vehicle. So it's actually also causes a distraction for them as well. Okay. But once again, 1 in 10 drivers, or you can kind of flip this the other way. All drivers are distracted 10% of the time. Usually when I put up the 1 in 10 are distracted, I always kind of get the thought process of, oh no, there's way more people on their phone out there than that. So not asking you guys to do a survey, but next time you're traveling, just take a glance. I'll bet you'll see about 1 in 10 drivers distracted behind the wheel. And once again, we have years of data to support this from the Kansas survey that we do, and it also very much mirrors national stats we get from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So it is a problem. 1 in 10 drivers. You know, I like to throw out the fact of if 1 in 10 drivers are drunk behind the wheel, we have a lot of other problems. Fortunately, it's not that level, and we have some great things going on to help combat it. All right, so let me slip back up. When we look at older drivers, and I'm going to kind of go into some of the things that we also do. We do know older drivers may be more fragile. Okay, so therefore, you know, crash that happened when they were in their 40s, severe injuries may occur now that they're in their 70s or 80s. We certainly know that. Maybe less physical mobility. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this too. But when I say that, you know, maybe we just we're able to turn as quickly as what we used to, or engage in different things besides. Okay, so once again, just think of it in that way. The beauties of older drivers, they self-regulate. And I just threw out a few things. You know, I know many older drivers who don't drive at night. Okay, they just made that conscious decision. They're not going to do it. They don't drive on interstates or the higher speed routes. That's a conscious decision that they're making. And they may not like to drive in large urban centers. I got to be honest, I get challenged in large urban centers too, with all of the stuff that does go on there too. But once again, this group does a really good job of self-regulating. Okay, so that's a hats off as far as the efforts that they're making. I do want to highlight a program. Who's heard of CarFit? Okay, we have a couple in the group. So CarFit is a program that's actually AAA kind of helped put this thing on. We went a couple years without doing it because of COVID, because it is some personal interaction. But the things that I want to highlight, it's an educational program. And if you look at the very bottom, the ktsro.org, you can click on there and you can pick out some events that happen across the state. My biggest highlight to this is it is not designed to restrict or take away your license. Okay, flat out, it's not. Okay, it's to talk about mobility issues. You know, how are you turning to one side or the other? Talks about maybe some things that will help you get in and out of the vehicle. Talks about things like how close did the steering wheel be to you. Okay, talks about maybe where you should set your mirrors. Okay, you know, actually, I went through an event, it's probably been 7 or 8 years ago, and one of the big things I took away from it, I love that the instructor looked at me and says, "Do you know where the back of your vehicle is? It doesn't move." I said, "Well, no." He says, "Well, then why do you have your mirrors in? It's not going anywhere." So one of the things they'll talk about is kind of widening the mirrors to really kind of pick up those blind spots and different things like that. But once again, it's a great program. I would certainly encourage you. We try to do them across the state. I know we're kind of ramping back up to doing them. But I would encourage you to go out and check out the ktsro.org. It's actually, they're under contract with KDOT to do a lot of educational things. The park is one of those. But you can be able to pick up, you'll be able to see where the sites are going to be going across the state. So now I want to lead a little bit into the strategic highway safety plan. I won't get into a whole lot of detail of it because it's a very comprehensive plan, but at a very high level, executive level stakeholders. Okay, so we're talking about secretaries, directors of state agencies. We have law enforcement engagement. We have insurance department engagement. We have our federal partners that are engaged. Once again, focusing on safety. Very well-rounded and diversified group. We meet about 4 times a year. And then as part of that, we have what's called emphasis area teams. And I will dive into that a little bit too. But once again, all focused on trying to drive fatalities and ultimately crashes down to 0. What things can we do? Maybe from an engineering perspective, maybe from an enforcement perspective, maybe from an education perspective. Getting everybody to understand the fact of we have about 400 traffic fatalities in the state every year. That's pretty consistent for probably the last 5 to 6 years. That's a horrific number. That's more than one a day. Okay, we have about 350 fatal crashes, but once again, about 400 people die on the roads. So we really got a great group of folks trying to work on to try to bring those numbers down. I referenced the emphasis area teams that are part of the strategic highway safety plan. One of those emphasis area teams is the older driver team. Okay, and I think Jay had mentioned that he was on originally, and we have 12 to 14 members of this team that are currently engaged. We meet quarterly. Many of the meetings that we're doing lately will either be in person or virtual, or kind of a combo of that too. COVID has kind of changed the dynamics of how we do lots of things. And so we try to provide those virtual options. But once again, they'll look at the data, kind of develop some strategies, and then take it to the Executive Safety Council and see what we can implement. Okay. Or maybe we can implement it within the current resources that we have. So data. We use data to drive down the numbers. So a couple of the strategies that I wanted to highlight, we really focused on what older drivers need. And so I did bring a couple posters that we've done recently that I think that we've sent out to caregivers, older drivers, and physicians' offices. We have a couple of those up here. I will show you this other one. I think this is version 3. I think we did another one about 2.5 years ago. I think we're out of those, but we'll continue to look to revamp those. We also have, it's called a DOSI card. And this is actually for law enforcement to help people, kind of manage through if they're seeing an issue with somebody driving. It's kind of a little checklist for them to help navigate. Is it a medical issue? You know, do they need some additional assistance? But once again, the focus would be to get them back on the road if they can operate safely. So these are, some, like I said, some of the educational things that we've done with that. So as I mentioned, Chris Ports is the Bureau Chief with KDOT Bureau of Transportation Safety. Now I'm also going to go into, I referenced the teasing a little bit earlier, and Haley Doherty was going to do this presentation. We had a little step through with Haley, but that's okay. We'll work that out in the end. I want to talk a little bit about roundabouts, about diverging diamonds, and about rumble strips. Okay, who knows what a roundabout is? All right. I think if I asked that question about 15 years ago, I think I'd probably get about 1/3 of the hands up. You know, there's certainly an emerging technology, emerging infrastructure opportunity that it doesn't fit everywhere, but we do utilizing those, and we're utilizing more. And Kansas is not alone. A lot of other states are going down this path. So think of the whole point of it is there's 2 points in my opinion, main are 2 points. First of all, we eliminate the left-hand turn in front of somebody else. Okay, so as the slide says, we only have a quarter of the amount of conflict points than we would have a standard cross intersection. Okay, reducing speeds, okay, as you approach and navigate through these. And ultimately, it'll reduce travel time. You shouldn't have to sit at the stoplight like you do now, or a stop sign. Okay, if the roundabout's open to you on the left, there's nobody in it, and you can just cruise right on through at reasonable speed. So certainly, it probably goes without saying, you know, Europe's been using these for probably 20 or 25 years, but the United States and certainly Kansas is we're seeing more of those. I don't know if we have any local folks, Shawnee County or Topeka. They actually just announced a new one this morning at 29th and Auburn Road. They're going to be putting one in 2025, I think is what I saw in the news this morning. So yeah, they're certainly becoming a lot more popular. Tips to navigating the roundabout. As you approach, slow down and review the sign. We're really good about putting signs up to tell people how to navigate, whether it's a single lane or a dual lane, as far as what direction you want to go, what lane you need to be in when you enter that roundabout. That also leads into, you know, once again, decide which lane you need to be in to exit. Follow the signs, and just kind of keep an eye on what's going on the roundabout. Yield before you enter. I think I referenced, you know, look to the left. If there's nobody there, okay, then you're free to navigate to the next spot or where you're going to exit. If there is somebody there, wait your turn, and then just follow them right through to where you're going to be exiting. Also, too, not only the signage, but the lane pavement markings are very important. Follow all of those guidelines. They're there for a reason. Here's another example of a little bit better visual of what a roundabout is. So once again, think of your car one and what your decisions are going to be. Okay, as you're entering, you see the red cars just finally going through. So basically, you'd be able to come through and then start navigating. You're going to go to the first one. Here's where you go on through, all the way up to the top, and then you can take a 3/4 turn and get all the way across. So, like I said, I think it's a technology that we've embraced. It certainly reduces crashes. Okay, and it'll reduce those troublesome right angle crashes or higher speed crashes. Because once again, the whole point of them is reduce the left turns and reduce speeds in there, so we know they'll have less severe crashes. Okay, who's heard of a diverging diamond? All right, we got a couple. They're a little bit more new to Kansas, and I'm going to look at Chris. I think we have 2 in the state. So we have 2. I think we have 2.
I have one more.
The 2 that I'm aware of, I believe, I know I think one is in Olathe around K10 on one of the bridges that goes over. And then the other one is actually underneath I-70 on 77 as it goes on the west side of Junction City. Okay.
Turner diagonal.
Turner diagonal?
Yeah, out there at Kansas Wyandotte County.
So there would be 3. There would be, yeah, the brand new one that we just built. Actually, we got the awards for that whole intersection. So that was really, no, very good, great point. I forgot about that one. So I'll tell you guys a quick little story. It's probably been 7 or 8 years ago. I used to go down to Springfield, Missouri for a bowling tournament every year. Okay, and that's not the story. But the story is, I saw an article that they were going to have a diverging diamond. They actually put one in at I-44 and what used to be 71 highway. Now it's the Interstate 49. And so, and I said, well, that'd be kind of cool. We're going there in about a month. So we're driving up towards this, and I looked at everybody in the car and I said, wait till you guys see this. And they were going, what do you mean? I said, okay, all the signs, see the signs. But yeah, basically, we take the traffic and we send you over to the other lane. Okay, so it's kind of a cross merge over here. First of all, now we're eliminating the left turn in front of somebody. Okay. Second of all, they really increase traffic flow. So the intersection that I just described had a huge amount of traffic that was trying to go westbound or eastbound on 44. Well, now they're not sitting at a stoplight. They're not waiting for traffic right there. They're actually able to go ahead and go through and then go left, go right under the interstate before they get to the next set of lights where people will cross back the other way. So the thing that I would really highlight too is, once again, we're reducing those conflict points that we talked about in the roundabout, which is the same thing. For better sight distance for those left turns. Once again, most of the time there's not going to be somebody in front of you, so you'll be able to make that left turn. It improves safety on and off the highway system. Don't be afraid of them. Signs are there. Follow the markings. We'll use different raised medians and different things like that to help direct you where we want you to go. Okay, but they are a newer technology. Once we just talked about 3 of them in the state. I don't know if there's any plans for any future, but don't be afraid of it. Okay, don't be feared by them. But all of us, when we enter new things, there's always like, okay, how do I do this? Did I do that right, or things like that? That's not based upon this. That's me too. We all think that way. Okay? So something new. So tips to navigate that Haley put together for me as you approach the interchange: review the signs, pavement markings. Once again, we'll kind of direct you where you're supposed to go. Traffic lights control all activities. You cross to the left. Remember, we're going to be in the right-hand lane. We're going to shift you over to the left, and the other traffic will be doing the same thing. You do travel for a limited distance, and you cross back to the traditional right side of the roadway. Okay, so it's not very long. Typically, the length of a bridge is the ones that I've seen is about the length of it. So once again, you don't feel like you're driving on the European side of the road forever. Okay, it's just pretty much a short jaunt over. We get rid of the conflict points, and then we send you back to the other side. I do apologize. I couldn't get the video to work. I had trouble getting some internet access. So one of the other things that was referenced was the zipper merge, or a lot of people like to think of the lake merge. Reduces the speed differential across all lanes, reducing congestion by carrying traffic through to the merge point. Okay, this has always been a little bit of a challenge for me because I'm kind of one of those guys that when I see that the traffic going to merge, I immediately jump on. Okay, what we really want you to do is we want to use both lanes till we get to the merge point. Okay, whether we call it zipper merge or lake lane merge or something like that, we're utilizing all of that because once again, what we really want to avoid is the long queue that'll be behind us. Okay, so once again, use both those lanes, get to the merge point, and just take your turns and just go right off. So to me, that's just the. I'm trying to get better at that myself. Once again, I'm kind of throwing myself underneath the bus because actually I had a conversation with a few of the traffic engineers, and I said, "Oh no, I'm getting over it." No, Chris, I don't want you to get over it yet. Use both lanes, get to the merge point, and then go from there.
How do we educate besides our group of 45?
We're going to try to do some things to do that, and it's actually a great point. And I won't go into what I told a few of the traffic engineers about how we can do that. But once again, don't be upset by what we really don't want to is people like tired of people flying by them, and then all of a sudden they start kind of creeping in the other way and things like that. That's just going to create all kinds of havoc.
Yeah.
And you'll have people doing bad things inside of a construction zone where we may have reduced lane width, we may have reduced speed limits and different things like that. And as you get closer and closer to the work zone, now you've got workers up there, you've got other large equipment up there. So once again, we certainly don't want to do that. So we're working on some things, hopefully, to get people to think about that a little bit differently. So once again, when you think of zipper merge or the lake merge, that's kind of what we've done. So as Haley pointed out, continue traveling in your lane until the merge point. Okay, when you reach the merge, alternate incoming vehicles. Okay, just be courteous, let everybody kind of go through in that zipper form, and then we can get everybody through. All right, it's just very important, and it'll actually increase, it'll decrease your travel times and the fact that you're not sitting in a long queue of 1 or 2 miles by doing that. Everybody's heard of rumble strips, I'm assuming. Okay. So once again, alternating drivers through vibration and sound, cost effective. We have several types. We've done center line, we've done shoulder, transverse, and we've also done some temporary ones. Typically, the temporary ones are going to be around a work zone that we have. That we really want people to slow down. Or we may have to go in and do it later for people that are not slowing down. Okay, that's another thing that we can do with the temporary side. Center line rumble strips show a 44 to 64% reduction in head-on, fatal, and injury crashes on 2-lane rural roads. So there is a method to the madness. The whole point is saving lives, and they certainly do that. Shoulder rumble strips, anywhere from 13 to 50% reduction in single vehicle run-off-the-road fatality and injury crashes on 2-lane rural roads. And that's where you'll see a lot of these too. We certainly do them on some of our bigger facilities, on the interstates, on the freeways, and different things like that too. But when you look at those 2 lanes, especially in the rural areas, we really need people to stay in the lane. Okay, there's just not a lot of room for errors to get off to the side or different things like that. And so rumble strips are definitely a proven countermeasure that I know that we have throughout the state. We actually just got done revising our rumble strip policy recently because we certainly know the safety impacts of that. So here's some examples of some different ones, and I know it's probably a little bit hard to see. Those are inside of the pavement. Okay, we can do them ahead of a curve. you know, maybe we have a curve that's out there, you know, maybe it's ours, maybe it's the locals or things like that. Maybe we could even recommend it to a candidate or something like that, to let people know to slow people down as they're coming into that curve. This one is kind of interesting. It has a level on it, whether you can see it, there are dips underneath that. Once again, just to kind of get that little feel of the driver going, oh boy, I need to wake up and get back in my lane, okay? Once again, avoiding them to have that lane departure. And then some of the other traditional ones I think that you've seen up here as well too. Proven countermeasure, I'm fairly comfortable continue to implement as the data tells us that we need to when we look at roadway departure and different things like that. So it's unfortunate Haley couldn't be here, but I do want to put up her slide here. So Haley Morty, she's brand new actually to this position, the planning and engineering section manager. She is an engineer section, works out of the Phillipsburg office. So for those of you that know, Phillipsburg, pretty much north of Hayes, out in that area out there. And she has been a rock star. So I've only worked with her for about a year, but she has done a tremendous job in helping promote safety, thinking about the hard side things that we can do. So without further ado, I don't know where I'm at on time. I didn't see a big hook yet, so I don't think I'm doing too awful bad. Oh, okay. Questions?
Is there any chance every license just about in the state, like teachers or beauticians or barbers, you have to take a course every so often to renew your license? Only a driver's license you get is good for life, as long as you pay the money. And yet people don't understand how to drive with the new technology. Is there any chance we'll ever have it where you have to take a course every now and then, like for seniors every 5 years, and people every 10 years, so they learn how to use their car and how to drive?
So that would be a legislative question that I will shy away from. There are, right. So there are some, one of the websites out there that I would encourage you to go to is My Car Does What. It's actually a YouTube page, and it will talk about some of the newer technology that's in the vehicles today. Right. One of the things that somebody brought up to me was, okay, let's say you're driving a 10 or 12-year-old car, and all of a sudden you go to Washington, D.C. and you rent a car. Well, it's going to be a 2022, and well, wait a minute, what's this buzzing going on over here? Why are these lights showing up over here? So I would encourage you, once again, My Car Does What? Will help introduce folks to the newer technologies that are in there, whether it be a blind spots. The quick little story I would say, I got into my wife's car probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't realize that it had a lane departure warning, and actually the seat rumbled depending upon which way you've gone off to the side of the road. So if you were going left, your kind of left buttocks kind of rumble a little bit. If you're going off to the right, then the right side. I wasn't even aware that the vehicle had that feature. So once again, think about the newer technology. Like I said, I would certainly encourage you to go out to My Car Does What, to kind of learn about some of those new things. Do not hesitate. If you're looking at a new car, don't hesitate to ping on the dealership. What does this thing have? Right. What do I need to be aware of? Or let's maybe go out for longer than a 10-minute drive. Let's experience some of the different areas and talk about some of the new safety features that are in there. I think it's really interesting. One of the things we've had a hard time quantifying is we know our vehicles are safer, and they've just done it over time. Okay, a vehicle that comes off the showroom today is X times safer than the one that came off even 10 or 12 years ago. If we pass legislation, okay, and I'm not going down that specific legislation, okay, but if you pass legislation, you'll typically put a line in the same, says, okay, we passed this, what's the output from that? Okay, and so there's lots of different things you can look at from that standpoint. Safer vehicles, they just kind of get safer every year. So there's not really a line in the sand where you can say, okay, this one really made huge improvements and we can do that. Every year we get newer features that come into the vehicles. Probably go back to one of the first ones was analog brakes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. Well, once again, our vehicles are so much safer, and one kind of thing I'll throw myself underneath the bus a little bit. And actually, I don't have my cell phone with me, but the fact is, I'll even do it to my kids. Hey, my phone won't do this. Can you do this for me? Ask your kids about the new things that are out there in some of the vehicles too. Okay, don't hesitate to ask. And like I said, ping on the dealerships. They should know those things. Yeah, Chris.
So, Chris, you might want to also talk about the assist area too,
start keeping using my.
The emphasis area team, and you know that for older drivers is one of the things we have in place to talk about, you know, what things we can do with older drivers to make it safer for them, and also maybe educational programs and those type of things. So, you know, one of the things that we do talk about is, you know, things that we have control over right now, and then things that we don't have control over right now, like legislative. You know, if we want to pass legislation, that's talked about, and it's put on a list, and we have to figure out, you know, when is the right time to go forward with maybe some legislation that would allow us to make some rules about taking driver's education when they're older.
AAA does have support.
So, right. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
So yeah, we're always open for new ideas of some different things.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You know, you see the,
I'm just pointing her, I'm gonna go to her next, so you're good.
you see the reflection of the lanes with the white reflectors on the paved markings. Where we in Kansas, I see very few of those, and they've got some really, really dark roads. When we were coming up I-70 last night, there were no white reflectors in the I-70, and they do a tremendous amount of work. Where they would put that type of safety when you come around curves and different things like that, the road disappears because you've got poor lighting. And the other part of that question is on the backside of the white reflectors. I've seen in different states, they have a red reflector to let you know that you're going in the wrong direction. Where are we with Kansas with that type of safety?
So I think I give it to Chris, but I think I know the answer.
You want to go ahead?
Nope. All right. So the things that I've been told when you talk about the reflectors, the tape on reflectors, I think that we do use those sometimes in construction zones. Once again, from a temporary perspective, I think one of the challenges that we have versus some of the other states, where I've seen exactly what you were talking about, is we have snowplows that don't like those things very well. So typically, the more south you get, the less snow that they'll get and ice. So you might see those a lot more. But I think we have used those on a temporary basis. Once again, we're in the work zones, different things like that. Did I get it right?
Yeah, you did. You nailed it. One of the things I was going to also mention is we have a pavement marking program within KDOT where you look at all the pavement markings around the state. You know, because they get old and then they're not very reflective. So not just talking to the ones that stick up, but also making sure that we have reflective paint down on the highways that drivers can see. And, you know, it's hard to keep up on all that along with reflective signs and everything else because you're constantly replacing them. But that's a program we have for both signs and pavement markings is to review that reflectivity and figure out which ones need to be replaced and then replace them with very reflective materials. So.
Yeah, it is very cool. I think I was in Dallas when I saw the opposite color.
Yes.
As I was going out, I don't remember if it was red or it was something.
was,
I'm like, whoa.
So I saw them in Arizona.
Are they landing an airplane or what are they doing with this thing here? So
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on your item that the police go on,
The Dosi car.
okay, I have a girlfriend that drives a Lexus because it's prestige. She looks through the steering wheel hole. She can't even see the front end of her car. And I asked her, you can't see the nose. Well, if I raise the seat up, then my feet don't touch the pedals. Now, can we add something to this that if a police officer sees somebody that is not, that you can't even see sitting in the car, and of course you have those that drive like this, make them go to, does your car fit?
So I would certainly recommend to your friend or other people that are in that situation to go through the car fit and do that. So I mean, these are just a general guideline for law enforcement. You know, once you, the biggest thing I would look at these is they're trying to rule out a medical emergency or a medical issue.
Right.
Okay, and looking at that cognitive value, are they being able to comprehend the things that are on the road or the things that they're going to encounter? So I'm not opposed to us potentially going back and looking at kind of revising
If the police
that.
officer gave it to her, she'd go. If I tell her,
It's on.
She can't reach your pedal, you say?
yeah, she
Okay,
can.
I'm just, okay, you got pedal extender.
Right.
You pedal extenders for pedal. Yeah, if you go for disabled or for disabled people, they've got adapters that you can get pedal extenders.
Where would I go? Because
Like
I'm on
all disabled or disabilities, association.
on the internet.
Yeah, go in and pedal extenders, but
There are some.
don't like with it though.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
So there are some vehicles too that will allow you to adjust the pedals. I've seen that as well. Now, I don't know if it'll reach to the level that what
This
she's looking
is the
at.
second one, she told us this one, I know anybody will let her have.
But yeah, so once again, CarFit will help kind of talk about those things. You know, one of the things I remember when they were looking at CarFit was there's actually a little bit of a handle that you can put onto the doorpost that will actually help you get into the vehicle.
Yeah.
Especially for something maybe that's a little bit taller, you know, maybe not a standard vehicle, but SUV or a truck or something like that to kind of help people get in and out. So there's lots of great things that are out. Yes, ma'am.
I'll go then, Jake can go. So first, thank you for all the work that the KDOT does. We have a lot of road work going on nowadays. My question is about R-cuts. I live in Leavenworth County. So we have a new R-cut coming our way, and you didn't mention it. Are we the first R-cut in the state?
So if it's a yes or no, yes.
Yeah, so first of all, does everybody know what R-cut is?
No.
So, you know, our traffic engineers here, but I'll tell you what it is. They're kind of like what I call them, and I know it's incorrect to say it this way, our traffic engineer would probably get me if I said this, but it's like a Texas term. So instead of being able to go straight across, like who here is driven from El Dorado to Wichita? So that's at grade intersections, they go straight across 254, right? Okay, so, you know, when you have a high-speed facility and people going straight across, and you have a little median in the middle, they have to make judgments on getting across. When R-cut does not allow you to go straight across the intersection. What you do is you get up, and here's the road, okay? This table is the highway, and then you have a crossroad. So this car comes up to the highway, which is the table. Instead of going straight across, it has to make the right turn, get over in the left lane, go down a little bit, and then make a U-turn and come back to the left. But that's all, I mean, it's done in a safe manner with, you know, with signs and pavement markings. That way you don't have people going straight across and having somebody broadside going 70 miles an hour. So I've been on K254 between El Dorado and Wichita, and I've seen crashes that have occurred because somebody misjudged getting across the intersection. And I also ride my bike across that road, and I'm always very, very careful. But anyway, that's what an R-cut is.
So we got Leavenworth County.
Is it our first one in the state?
I think that we have two.
Oh, okay.
We have two that are being constructed, so I don't know which one.
Okay. And then Jay has a question.
I haven't seen the big hook yet, so we must not be doing too bad.
We still have that.
Okay.
State of Nebraska, we go through that a lot because we're living close to it. They have a really good program that as a driver, I really like. If there is a stop sign or a stop light on a road, then back about 300, 400 yards, they have a yellow sign with lights that if you at the regular speed are going to hit the green, that light's not on. And so you don't have to slow down. But if that light is going to turn before you get there, it's going to warn you far enough back that you can go ahead and slow down. And you better do it because you're not going to make it. I mean, they're very accurate in their prediction. And I just love that because if you're going 65 miles an hour and you're going to make the green light, why slow down and then accelerate? And then from a safety standpoint, I think it's excellent. They've had that program probably about 7 or 8 years.
So I'm aware on K10, I know we have that at Walker Root stuff. I'm saying that right. There is advanced
Probably in the back.
notification far enough back that, yeah, if it's flashing, you start slowing down. You won't make it.
That's right.
I can't speak for if it's any, that's the only one that jumps out at me that we have that.
We have, on Highway 75
Yeah.
going north, they have that before you get into Holt.
Right, and that show you if there's vehicles sitting there waiting to enter 75 highway. That's what that's there for. So when you're on the main drag on 75, going east, north or south, doesn't matter. If that light's flashing, that means there's somebody at those cross intersections potentially that's gonna come across. So once again, we're trying to make the driver on 75 be a little bit more aware that somebody could be coming across.
Well, you got the Walmart store, and people are exiting out of Walmart and come up to that intersection. And I think that's the reason that they put it in.
You know, we have a number of those warning signs across the state, but what you have to also remember is KDOT is responsible for the highway, and then we have the local roads that intersect. So we don't always dictate, you know, the type of flashing, you know, light, warning lights and stuff, or stop sign on the side road. But what I will say is that as we look at our intersection and we work with our local partners, we're always looking for ways to work together to make the highway system safer. And there are a number of warning lights systems that you can use. They do have to meet certain regulations or certain standards in order to put it in. It's called the MUTCD, which is way more than you guys want to know. If it doesn't meet some certain eligibilities, then you're not supposed to use it. So.
If you're really having trouble sleeping, I would encourage you to read the MUT stuff. No, don't do that, okay?
Also on 75, there's a couple other areas where you got crossroads and those blinking lights come if somebody has come up
Right,
to 75.
Yep. very much so.
It is either going to go across or turn on and go either way. But it still alerts you to slow down a bit, be aware of cross traffic.
Yes,
But it only starts flashing if somebody is approaching.
right,
75.
somebody's in there, yes. Yes, sir.
I don't know if this pertains to KDOT or maybe Kansas Motor Vehicle, but I'd like to share the story. My father just passed away here. He was 99 years old. And when he was 96, he was in his first stages of dementia. And he went to go renew his driver's license. And he flunked. And so he flunked the eye test. So he's so determined to get his driver's license, he went back to the eye doctor and got some new glasses and come back, passed the test, gave him his license. Well, at that time, he was really going to this state of dementia. He didn't remember a lot of things, you know. And so they took the keys away from the truck, said he can't drive anymore. And he got really upset because he goes, that was my right. But one day he came one Sunday morning and with the truck, how'd you get here? He goes, well, I drove my truck. What do you think I got here? Well, what he did, he had a key that he hid underneath the bumper. He took that key out. That's how he got down there. It was so chilly that he made it all the way down the house like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, as we get older and we see each other, we say to ourselves, are you still capable of driving? You know, can you still see? Can you still make that judgment or that car's coming that fast? That's what I'm trying to, maybe I shouldn't bring that out right now, but I think I was trying to tell you, it was a very chilling moment in our time to see him come up like that. It's like a drunken driver, you know, with keys. It was chilling. So I just thought I'd say that we should all look after each other, you know, and say, hey, we too have to make the judgments for the other people. Say, you can't drive anymore.
I appreciate you sharing the story, and that, you know, it's something that I think all of us have to deal with, you know, whether it's with a friend or whether it's with parents or different things like that. Those are not, those aren't fun conversations, but they are important. You know, some of the signs to look for, we went through with my father-in-law. You can just kind of see the vehicle starting to get a few more scratches on the side of the vehicle. It wasn't anything severe, but it was kind of like, okay, we really need to have this conversation about should you be driving. And it's not easy.
No.
I'm not going to disagree with it. Knock on wood, I'm in a position of having had that conversation with my parents yet, but I'm fairly confident at some point I will have to have that. as I referenced earlier too, the older drivers are really good at self-regulating too. But when you take away the keys, that takes away the independence. And it's difficult and it's hard to do. But once again, those are difficult conversations. From my perspective, my biggest fear is that they will do something to kill somebody else. And so when you start thinking about that, those are things you have to take into consideration. So once again, I really do appreciate the time. One more last point. Actually, I saw my first deer this morning. Please keep an eye out for deer on the road. It was a doe, not very big. But it was one of those, oh my, I just kind of driving by at about 45 miles an hour. We're certainly entering that season, and you're going to see it more throughout the month of October, and then the first couple weeks of November, I think is kind of where it really peaks up. So keep an eye out there for deer this time of the road. Okay, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I did, as I referenced, and I don't know how you guys can be here. We got some brochures for emerging diamonds, roundabouts. I brought some of the posters that I highlighted earlier too, and some of the dosi cards too. I will leave these up here. You guys are more than welcome to take which one. If not, go to the ktsro.org. They've got all this information out there. You can order for if you're doing presentations or different things like that. You can order from them as well too. They're under contract with KDOT through a federal grant that we have. So if you don't get any results from them, email me and I'll figure out what to do with it, why you didn't get anything out. So once again, thank you.